Greetings everyone, my name is Gigi and this is Let's Build. When I build a Lego set, time to different media and talk about the facts concerning the topic of the build. Today's build is the Lego Lord of the Rings The Shire versus Lego Lord of the Rings video game for the Nintendo DS. All footage I'm using is for science, educational, and research purposes. My content is transformative and protected under fair use. All footage is time-lapse with commentary. I apologize in advance for mispronouncing names and or places. Spoilers ahead for Lord of the Rings, you've been warned. Specifications of the Lego set. Journey to Middle-earth with the Lego Icons Lord of the Rings The Shire movie memorabilia set. Bursting with features that fans will adore, this intricate diorama captures the magic of Bilbo Baggins' 1101st birthday party and includes 9 movie characters: Bilbo Baggins, Frodo, Mrs. Proudfoot, Farmer Proudfoot, Merry, Pippin, Rosie, Samwise, and Gandalf the Grey. Recreate Bilbo's hillside hobbit hole, complete with a round door and a richly furnished interior, including an entrance hall, study, and parlor. Bring scenes to life with the interactive functions. Transform a burning letter into the One Ring, or make Bilbo vanish at the turn of a dial. Packed with movie details, from Gandalf's horse and cart to the firework dragon and party tree, this set makes an enchanting display for home or office. Discover the inspiring range of Lego building sets for adults. The Lego Builder app features digital version of the building instructions included with this set. Lego Icons Movie Memorabilia Set. Travel to Bilbo Baggins' enchanting hobbit hole in the Shire region of Middle-earth with Lego Icons The Lord of the Rings The Shire building set for adults. What's in the box? All you need to build a Lego model of the Shire and Bilbo Baggins: Frodo, Mrs. Proudfoot, Farmer Proudfoot, Merry, Pippin, Rosie, Samwise, and Gandalf the Grey minifigures. Features and functions: transform a burning letter into the One Ring, make Bilbo vanish at the turn of a dial, and recreate the dragon fireworks scene with interchangeable heads for Merry and Pippin. Packed with movie-themed details. Includes Gandalf's horse and cart, fireworks, a firework dragon figure, the party tree, party pavilion, and Bilbo's book, which can be displayed opened or closed. Home office gifts for movie lovers. Treat yourself or give this Lego Icons building set as a gift for adult fans of the Lord of the Rings movie trilogy. Lego building kits for adults. This Lego Icons project is part of the inspiring range of Lego creative building sets designed specifically for adults. Dimensions. The model of the Shire in this 2017-piece building set measures over 7.5 inches high, 17.5 inches wide, and 10.5 inches deep. A long-expected party. J.R.R. Tolkien's beloved The Lord of the Rings universe unfolds in the enchanting world of Middle-earth, a mythical land rich in history, tales of heroic characters, and the power of friendship. In the first movie, The Fellowship of the Ring begins in the Shire, home of the hobbits. This serene setting is bustling with excitement as Bilbo Baggins prepares for his 1101st birthday. Bilbo's joyful celebration is a party of special magnificence, filled with feasts, magical fireworks, and the arrival of Gandalf the Grey. Soon the Shire's harmony and quaint beauty contrasts with looming darkness. When Bilbo mysteriously vanishes from the party, he leaves behind an ancient artifact with ominous powers: the One Ring. His actions set in motion an eventful journey that will shape the fate of Middle-earth. This Lego Lord of the Rings The Shire set is a highly detailed diorama of Bilbo's cozy house under the hill. Step inside, enjoy the warmth, hospitality, and a nice cup of tea before the road goes ever on. From the LEGO Icons design team. Welcome to the lush and cheerful setting of Hobbiton. To help us stay true to the movie scenes, our partners at Warner Bros. Discovery provided extensive reference materials, including a detailed floor plan of Bag End. You will discover and build lots of story moments from the Fellowship of the Ring, some only featured in the extended movie version. Our textile and graphics teams helped recreate the party scene with 2 brand new printed textile elements for the birthday banner and party pavilion. We hope you'll feel right at home among the Shire's beautiful rolling hills, find comfort in Bag End, and enjoy the festivities. Frodo Baggins relaxes with his book in a quiet wooded area of the Shire. Frodo greets Gandalf the Grey, beloved wizard and disturber of the peace, as he arrives in a cart full of fireworks. A wizard is never late, Frodo Baggins, nor is he early. He arrives exactly when he means to. Gandalf the Grey. Bilbo Baggins sits at his desk, dreading unannounced visitors, well-wishers, and distant relations. "And what about very old friends?" said to Bilbo Baggins by Gandalf the Grey. A joyful reunion of 2 dear friends. Gandalf notices that Bilbo hasn't aged a day. Before the festivities begin, Bilbo insists the 2 should have a bit of tea and cake. Gandalf and Bilbo enjoy a quiet moment together on this night to remember. The magical fireworks are simply too tempting for the curious hobbits, Merry and Pippin. Bilbo takes the stage, but his merry speech takes a mysterious turn and, in an instant, he's gone. "I'm going now, and I bid you all a very fond farewell. Goodbye. Bilbo Baggins." Gandalf casts the envelope with the 1 ring into the fire and reveals its secrets to Frodo. For 60 years, the ring lay quiet in Bilbo's keeping, prolonging his life, delaying old age. But no longer, Frodo. Evil is stirring in Mordor. The ring has awoken. It has heard its master's call. Gandalf the Grey. Samwise overhears the secret conversation between Gandalf and Frodo. The adventure begins. "I ain't been dropping no eaves, sir. Honest." Samwise. The small round windows of Bag End are the first LEGO window elements to feature circular openings. An ornate coat rack is a fine place for visitors to hang their cloaks. The LEGO pen element was recolored in white to represent candles dripping with wax. The LEGO boomerang element was recolored in medium nougat to replicate a wattled fence. The roof of the entrance hall is designed to be removed for easy access to greet guests at the front door. While the furniture of Bag End matches the smaller stature of the hobbits, a decorative pine cone looks quite large in comparison. The movie set of Bag End interior was built at 2 scales. A small one for the Gandalf the Grey to walk through, and a large one for Bilbo Baggins. The portraits of Bilbo's parents featured in the Fellowship of the Ring from 2001 were based on director Peter Jackson and his wife, Fran Walsh. "There's always been a Baggins living here under the hill in Bag End, and there always will be." Bilbo Baggins. Mrs. Proudfoot's skirt is a new mold appearing for the first time in this set. During the filming of Bilbo giving his birthday speech, the giant polystyrene cake covered in candles actually caught fire. The Shire was a country in northwestern Middle-earth, inhabited by hobbits. It was located in the region of Eriador and was under the control of the Reunited Kingdom as a free land. By the late Third Age, it was one of the few heavily populated areas left in Eriador. Contrary to popular misconception, the Shire was not the birthplace of Frodo Baggins, as he was born in Buckland, which at the time was not formally a part of the Shire despite being colonized by Shire hobbits. At the end of the Third Age, Saruman tried to take control of it for a very short period, but was killed in the Battle of Bayswater, which ended the War of the Ring. History. As a settlement, the Shire was settled by hobbits in the year 1601, year 1 in Shire reckoning. The hobbits had migrated west over the misty mountains in the centuries before and lived in Dunland and parts of the depopulated Arnor splintered realms, Cardolan and Rudar, before coming to the Shire. It has been speculated that the hobbits had originally moved west to escape the evils of Mirkwood and the shadow of Dol Guldur. The Shire was part of Arthedain, as such a part of Arnor. The hobbits were granted official permission from King Argoleb II at Norbury to settle in the Shire, which had become depopulated in the Great Plague and was seen as the king's hunting grounds. The hobbits considered themselves to be subjects of the king and sent contingents of archers to the great battles of Arthedain to fight against the Witch King of Angmar. For reasons unknown, Angmar did not attack the Shire after it conquered Arthedain. Tales claim that some hobbit bowmen were involved in the Battle of Fornost, though no tales exist in the records of men. After the fall of Arthedain in 1974, the Shire became, in effect, a free land, with the Thane's office replacing royal authority. The Third Age and beyond. The Shire's history was mostly peaceful, but as Sauron's return neared, evil began to return in Eriador. In 2747, a band of orcs led by Golfenbull invaded the Shire and were met and defeated by Bandabras Took at the Battle of the Green Fields. In 2912, white wolves attacked Eriador during a terrible winter, leading to famine and the death of many hobbits. The Shire's peace was next disturbed by events stemming from Bilbo Baggins' acquisition of the One Ring. In 1418 of Shire reckoning, the Shire was first visited by the 9 ringwraiths, who went as far as Hobbiton, after which the Shire was enslaved by Saruman via his puppet Lotho Sackville Baggins. It was liberated with the help of Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin after the end of the Quest of Mount Doom. After Aragorn's return as the king of Arnor and Gondor, the Shire became a protected enclave inside of the Reunited Kingdom. Aragorn soon thereafter issued an edict that forbade the entrance of men into the Shire without the hobbits' permission, and confirmed the settlement of Buckland. In FO 31, Aragorn granted the West March to the hobbits for a settlement. Geography. The Brandywine River bounded the Shire from the east. Shire hobbits also lived in Buckland, which lay east of the river and west of the hedge, protecting Buckland from an invasion from the Old Forest. However, Buckland was not formally recognized as part of the Shire until after the War of the Ring, when it was given officially to the Shire as the East March by Aragorn. From the north and the west, the Shire had no topographical borders. Rather, it was bounded by a vague geographical features such as the Tower Hills. The Shire was quite densely populated in certain areas, with many villages and a few towns, but it was still open enough to allow for wide forested areas and marshes. The total amount of land calculated in square miles was 21,400, which likely excluded the West March. Climate. As stated by J.R.R. Tolkien, the climate of the Shire was very similar to that of England, cool but with not overly cold winters, and with fairly warm summers. Rainfall was fairly frequent, with snow being much more rare. Usually, the Shire was warm enough that the rivers did not freeze over, except during the fell winter. According to the computer models by the University of Bristol, the average temperature of Hobbiton would have been about 7 degrees Celsius, which confirms Tolkien's writings of the Shire having a climate rather like England. Maps. On J.R.R. Tolkien's maps, the Shire is located at about the same position as England was on modern European maps, and has been cited as an example of deep England ideology. Of course, England being on an island while Shire is inside a continent. Throughout the narrative, Tolkien also implies numerous points of similarity between the two, such as weather, agriculture, and dialect. One can also see England as Tolkien's source of inspiration for the Shire in its very name. Shire is a synonym of country. Nearby locations. 4 farthings. In Tolkien's fiction, the Shire is described as a small but beautiful, idyllic and fruitful land, beloved by its hobbit inhabitants. They had agriculture but were not industrialized. The landscape included downland and woods like the English countryside. The Shire was fully inland. Most hobbits feared the sea. The Shire measured 40 leagues east to west and 50 leagues north to south, with an area of some 18,000 square miles, roughly that of English Midlands. The main and oldest part of the Shire was bordered to the east by the Brandywine River, on the north by uplands rising to the hills of Evendom, and to the west by the Far Downs, and on the south by the marshland. It expanded to the east into Buckland between the Brandywine and the Old Forest, and much later to the west into the West March between the Fair Downs and Tower Hills. The Shire was subdivided into 4 farthings, or quarterings, as Iceland once was. Similarly, Yorkshire was historically divided into 3 ridings. The 3 farthing stone marked the appropriate center of the Shire. It was inspired by the 4 Shire stone near Moreton in Marsh, where once 4 counties met, but since 1931 only 3 do. There are several 3 Shire stones in England, such as in the Lake District, and formerly some 3 Shires oaks, such as at Whitewill in Derbyshire, each marking the place where 3 counties once met. Pippin was born in Whitwell in the Tookland. Within the farthings there are unofficial clan homelands. The Tooks nearly all live in or near Tuckborough in Tookland's Green Hill country. Buckland, also known as the East Marshes, was just to the east of the Shire across the Brandywine River. Named for the Brandybuck family, it was settled long ago as a sort of colony of the Shire. It was bounded to the east by the Old Forest, separated by a tall, thick hedge called High Hay. It included Crick Hollow, which serves as one of Frodo's 5 homely houses. The West March or West Marches was given to the Shire by King Elisar after the War of the Ring. Bree. To the east of the Shire was the isolated village of Bree, unique in having hobbits and men living side by side. It was served by an inn named the Prancing Pony, noted for its fine beer which was sampled by hobbits, men, and the wizard Gandalf. Many inhabitants of Bree, including the inn's landlord, Barlaman Butterbur, had surnames taken from plants. Tolkien described the butterbur as a thick, fat plant, evidently chosen as appropriate for a fat man. Tolkien suggested 2 different origins for the people of Bree. It either had been founded and populated by men of the Edain who did not reach Beleriand in the First Age, remaining east of the mountains in Eriador, or they came from the same stock as the Dunlendings. The name Bree means hill. Tolkien justified the name by arranging the village and the surrounding Bree land around a large hill, named Bree Hill. The name of the village Brill in Buckinghamshire, a place that Tolkien often visited, and which inspired him to create Bree, has the same meaning. Brill is a modern contraction of Bree Hill. Both syllables are words for hill. The first is Celtic and the second Old English. Bag End is the underground dwelling of the hobbits Bilbo and Frodo Baggins in J.R.R. Tolkien's fantasy novels The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. From there, both Bilbo and Frodo set out on their adventures, and both return from there for a while. Such as, Bag End represents the familiar, safe, comfortable place, which is the antithesis of the dangerous places that they visit. It forms one end of many story arcs in the novels, and since the hobbits return there, it also forms the end point of the story circle in each case. Tolkien described himself as a hobbit in all but size. Scholars have noted that Bag End is a vision of Tolkien's ideal home, and effectively an expression of character. Peter Jackson built an elaborate Hobbiton film set, including a detailed Bag End in New Zealand for his Lord of the Rings film series. Description: The Hobbit begins with among the most famous first lines in literature. In a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit, not a nasty, dirty, wet hole, filled with the ends of worms and an oozing smell, nor yet a dry, bare, sandy hole with nothing in it to sit down or to eat. It was a hobbit hole, and that means comfort. The protagonists of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, Bilbo and Frodo Baggins, lived at Bag End, a luxurious hobbit burrow dug into the hill on the north side of the town of Hobbiton in the Shire's West Farthing. Tolkien made drawings of Bag End and Hobbiton. His watercolor, The Hill Hobbiton Across the Water, shows the exterior and surrounding countryside. Tolkien made several pencil and ink sketches for these subjects, only gradually settling on Bag End's final location and architecture. Another of Tolkien's drawings, The Hall at Bag End, residence of B. Baggins, Esquire, depicts the interior complete with 20th century fittings such as a wall clock and barometer. Another clock is mentioned in Chapter 2 of The Hobbit. The barometer is mentioned in Tolkien's drafts of The Hobbit. Peter Jackson had an elaborate Hobbiton film set built on Alexander's sheep farm at Matamenta in New Zealand for his Lord of the Rings film series. It included a watermill, the Green Dragon Inn, and several hobbit holes, as well as Bag End in a small hill with a garden. Jackson said of the set, "It felt as if you could open the circular green door of Bag End and find Bilbo Baggins inside." Chad Chiselholm and colleagues reviewing Jackson's 2012 film The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey for Malorn write that Jackson humorously has the rough and ready dwarves bursting into Bilbo's neat little home and cleaning out his pantry, providing a sort of constant comic relief to the dangers in the dark. Real-world origins. Bag End was the real name of the Tudor home, dated 1413, of Tolkien's Aunt Jane Neve, in the village of Dormston, Worcestershire. The scholar of literature and film, Stephen Woodward, and the architectural historian Costas Kurelis suggest that Tolkien may have based his hobbit holes on Iceland's turf houses, such as those at Keldor, as a character from architecture. Tolkien stated, "I am in fact a hobbit," and scholars agree that he was in many ways like his hobbits, enjoying good food, gardening, smoking a pipe, and living in a familiar and comfortable home. Tolkien makes Bag End a place where, in the Tolkien scholar Thomas Honegger's words, most readers fear severely tempted to put on their imaginary slippers and settle down to a piece of cake and some tea. Honegger argues that places have a critical role in Lord of the Rings. and the function of the safe hobbit hole is to establish the character of hole dwellers. In the first place, stationary beings who have a deep-rooted aversion against traveling outside the Shire. For them, Honegger writes, traveling abroad belongs to the same class as adventurers. Quoting Bilbo's remark in The Hobbit, nasty, disturbing, uncomfortable things. They make you late for dinner. The scholar of literature Joanna Brooke writes in the Journal of Tolkien Research that the character of Bilbo Baggins can be inferred from the architecture of Bag End, just as that of hobbits in general can be deduced from their preference for living in holes. She suggests that Bag End is an arts and crafts building, fitting into the ideas of the designer William Morris and others in the periods between 1880 and 1920. Features such as Bag End's paneled walls, tiles, and carpet could all, Brooke writes, have been manufactured by Morris and Company, while the prosperous hobbit hole clearly indicates that Bilbo is middle class. Its position at the top of the hill demonstrates a physical and social elevation above other hole owners. Since Tolkien wrote in the prologue to The Lord of the Rings, suitable sites for these large and ramifying tunnels were not anywhere to be found. Brooke notes Tolkien's statement that only the richest and poorest were in fact able to continue the traditional hobbit practice of living in holes. The poor might have, as Tolkien said, burrows of the most primitive kind, with only one window or none. Bag End is sharply contrasted with such a burrow, its best rooms being provided with deep-set round windows. Brooke comments that Tolkien has shown this in The Hill, Hobbiton Across the Water, where Bag End has several windows while the hobbit holes further down, of Bagshot Row, have fewer. Other signifiers of wealth and class include such Victorian-era comforts as a dining room, multiple pantries, and wardrobes. Such things could indicate, Brooke writes, that Bag End's owner is indulgent, overly luxurious, too comfortable, and a tad vain even. Though against this, the hanging space for many hats and coats suggests a welcoming guest is important to him. Brooke quotes Morris's remark that the working man cannot afford to live in anything that an architect could design. Moderate-sized rabbit warrens are for rich, middle-class men, stating that with its mention of rabbit warrens, this aptly suits Bag End. The cartographer Karen Wynne Falstead created a plan of Bag End, showing her vision of its comfortable layout with many cellars and pantries, complete with multiple fireplaces and chimneys, based on the clues given by Tolkien in The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. Her plan makes Bag End some 130 feet long and up to 50 feet wide, cut into the hill. Honegger writes that Falstead's work has contributed substantially to giving Middle-earth an independent existence. Only one outlet. The Tolkien scholar Tom Shippey writes that the name Bag End is a direct translation of the French cul-de-sac, or bottom of bag, something that he calls a silly phrase, a piece of French-oriented snobbery, used in England to mean a dead end, a road with only one outlet. He notes that the French say impasse for the same thing. The journeys of Bilbo and Frodo have been interpreted as just such confined roads, as they both start and end in Bag End. According to Don D. Eglin, Tolkien's A Walking Song, which appears repeatedly in different forms in The Lord of the Rings as the quest progresses, is a song about the roads that go ever on until they return to at last to the familiar things they have always known. As such, it forms one end of the main story arcs in both The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, and since the hobbits return there, it also forms an endpoint in the story circle in each case. A most desirable residence. The journalist Matthew Dennison compares Lobiela Sackville Baggins's desire to move into Bag End to the similarly named aristocrat Vida Sackville West's passionate attachment to her family home, Knoll House, which she was unable to inherit. Sackville West became famous as a novelist and poet, and by the time The Lord of the Rings was published, the Observer's gardening columnist. Dennison notes that lobelia is a garden flower, and that the readers in the 1950s would immediately have linked the character to the most famous gardener. Shippey argues that the Bagginses and the Sackville Bagginses are connected opposites. Since the opposite of a bourgeoisie is a burglar, a person who breaks into bourgeoisie houses, and the hobbit Bilbo is asked to become a burglar to break into the lair of Smaug the dragon. He observes that the name Sackville Bagginses for the snobbish branch of the family is a philosophical joke, as Sackville can be translated as French form of the humble bag town, another attempt to reinforce the family's bourgeoisie status by Frenchifying their name. LEGO The Lord of the Rings is a 2012 LEGO-themed action-adventure video game developed by Traveller's Tales, released for the Nintendo 3DS, Nintendo DS, PlayStation Vita, Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and the Wii, the final LEGO game released for the latter console. An OS X version of the game, published by Feral Interactive, was released the 21st of February 2013. Based on the Lord of the Rings film trilogy, the game follows the original but spoofed storylines of Fellowship of the Ring, The Two Towers, and The Return of the King, taking players through the epic story events reimagined with humor and endless variety of LEGO play. The game utilizes music and voice acting taken from all three films of the film trilogy. Developer Traveller's Tales has stated they toned down the slapstick humor found in other LEGO licensed titles. The game follows the events in the films, however. Like the LEGO Star Wars series, some scenes from the films have been altered to become more family-friendly or provide comic relief to the player. Gameplay. LEGO The Lord of the Rings features gameplay similar to previous LEGO video games, and introduces new features based on the Lord of the Rings franchise. Throughout the game, players can collect and use numerous magical items, including the Light of Arendelle, elven rope, and a wide variety of swords, bows, and other such weaponry and armor from the film. Certain characters have new abilities, such as lighting up the dark places, Frodo, Gandalf, Radagast, and Saruman, and being thrown at objects and to locations, such as Gimli and Gloin. Each character has their own inventory, which usually consists of weapons and quest items. Some characters have items with abilities that are either character exclusive or available only to a small number of characters. There's also an inventory shared by all characters, which includes all mithril items, as well as collectible items located throughout the open world and all missions, all of which feature a large variety of weaponry and abilities. The game has a total of 18 levels, 6 for each film, plus a bonus level upon completion, as well as a hidden ending, which is unlocked after 100% of the game is complete. Combat involves the player attacking enemies either through basic melee combos or firing projectiles, either through aiming and pressing the shoot button. However, if the player and the enemy are both using swords, they may enter a brief sword fighting sequence involving the player pressing the fight button. Throughout the game, some parts of both the story and the open world can only be traversed or completed by using special items or abilities. These abilities include fishing, shooting, collecting water, explosives, invisibility, breaking Mordor bricks, light, and jumping high. Key features: explore all of the open world of Middle-earth and experience epic battles with orcs, Uruk-hai, the Balrog, the Witch King, and other fearsome creatures. Wield the power of the Palantir and Seeing Stone, and jump between multiple storylines. Experience the LEGO The Lord of the Rings heroes come to life in an all-new way with the minifig characters delivering the dialogue from the films. Collect, combine, and forge new items in the blacksmith shop using mithril, the most precious metal in Middle-earth. Discover and unlock more than over 80 playable characters, including Frodo, Aragorn, Gandalf, and many others. Collect and use a variety of weaponry and magical items, including the Light of Eredil, elven rope, swords, and bows. In the open world mode of the game, the player controls 2 changeable characters and is allowed to freely explore the game world, which spans the entire world of Middle-earth minus Mirkwood and the land south of Mordor. There are more than 80 playable characters, including Frodo Baggins, Gandalf, Legolas, and many others to discover and unlock, including Tom Bombadil, a character who appears in the books but not in the film trilogy. While players primarily travel on foot, they have the option of using fast travel through the map, which transports the player to any location they have previously been to and allows the player to change the time of day. Horses may also be ridden at specific locations throughout the world. Throughout the map, there are several notable locations, including the custom character creator at Bag End in the Shire, where players can create custom characters, and the blacksmith in Bree, who creates items using the player's mithril bricks and blueprints. While in free roam, the player can unlock and buy characters by finding them throughout Middle-earth, defeating them in battle, and then buying them for a varying number of studs, the in-game currency. Some characters can only be unlocked after the player completes puzzles to find their character tokens, after which they can be bought through the character selection screen. There are also many different side quests scattered through Middle-earth, which usually consist of having the player find a specific item. Upon finding that item, the player is usually rewarded with extras, which grant the player special boosts. Also scattered throughout Middle-earth are blueprints, mithril blocks, and other collectibles. Plot: based on the Lord of the Rings motion picture trilogy, LEGO The Lord of the Rings follows the original storylines of The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, and Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, taking players through the epic story events reimagined with the humor and endless variety of LEGO play. Trusted with the dangerous task to destroy an ancient magical ring that threatens all that is good, Frodo is forced to leave his peaceful home. But the ring wants to be found, and the road to Mount Doom, the only place where it can be destroyed, will be perilous and riddled with orcs and fouler things. To help Frodo, a fellowship is formed. Aragorn the rider, Gandalf the wizard, Legolas the elf, Gimli the dwarf, Boromir a man of Gondor, and Frodo's hobbit friends Sam, Merry, and Pippin. Development: the game was not released for Wii U because the Traveler's Tales, LEGO, and Nintendo were busy completing LEGO City Undercover, which was already behind schedule. The Wii version for Europe was delayed until November 30th. The game has also been released for iOS. It was released on October 20th, 2013. The gameplay is mostly the same with minor limitations. Audio: LEGO The Lord of the Rings is the second LEGO game to feature all full voice acting, following LEGO Batman 2 DC superheroes. However, the dialogue is taken directly from the film. Additional voices were provided. Marketing and release. LEGO The Lord of the Rings complements the LEGO Lord of the Rings toy collection. Pre-orders of the game came with an Elrond minifigure with a code to enter on the game's homepage for a wallpaper and designer video. LEGO Batman 2 DC Superheroes includes a trailer for the game. A demo was released for Microsoft Windows, Nintendo 3DS, and Xbox 360. Upon release, the Xbox 360 version had been potentially recalled for being shipped with demo discs rather than the full retail copy. The game was the last LEGO video game released on the Wii, as well as the first Middle-earth video game to be available on a Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft console since Lord of the Rings: The Third Age. On the 1st of January 2019, all digital sales of the game were halted. This was confirmed a few days later by publisher Warner Bros. Interactive. The game was later re-added to Steam on April 27, 2020, and it was added to Xbox backwards compatibility on the Xbox One and Series X and S consoles November 15, 2021. Reception. LEGO The Lord of the Rings has received generally positive reviews from critics, mostly praising the story, humor, and visuals based on Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy. Game Rankings gave it a score of 82% based on 12 reviews. However, the PS Vita version was criticized. This is my first time playing LEGO Lord of the Rings, and although I did enjoy the game, with the collecting activating my OCD, the controls were giving me trouble at times, especially when trying to jump. As far as the set goes, I love how there are different ways to display the model, choosing which parts of certain scenes to display, for instance, before or after Merry and Pippin set off the dragon firework, before or after Bilbo's goodbye speech, and any of the scenes that you could choose to recreate in Bag End. Total build time 4 hours 46 minutes, which means you could watch the extended edition of The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, at 228 minutes, and almost an hour of the Bakshi animated The Lord of the Rings film. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. Remember to like, subscribe, share, ring that bell, all the things for the YouTubes. Thank you.